Hi, I'm Nora Elder with the Advisa Client Success Team, and I'm here to introduce you to our kickoff video series about the cognitive assessment. This first video is meant to give you a quick overview of what cognitive ability is and why we would want to measure it. So let's dive in. General cognitive ability is a single data point that shines a light on an individual's ability to learn, adapt, problem solve, remember information, and process complex information. Cognitive ability is a stable trait, meaning that it's not something that's expected to change significantly over time once a person has reached adulthood. Because cognitive ability is about general learning and problem-solving power, cognitive ability is a strong predictor of job performance in nearly all jobs. For this reason, it can be a great additional data point in the hiring process. Cognitive ability is most appropriate for use in the hiring process. We actually do not recommend using cognitive data throughout the development process because it's not something that we expect to grow or change over time. It's a stable trait. Plus, this is relatively sensitive information. For these reasons, we also don't recommend sharing cognitive data with candidates, and sometimes not even with hiring managers. This data is confidential and likely should live with HR. The process for screening candidates for a job can be a lot like poking holes into a shoebox and trying to look in. Each time you poke a hole and shine a light in, you get a little bit more of a view as to what's inside, but you can't really see the whole contents of the box. With each step we take, from resumes and phone screens to interviews and assessments, we shine an additional light into a candidate and the potential they may have for success on the job. Cognitive ability is just one additional light that we can shine to better understand our candidate. And it's also one of the biggest lights that we can shine in terms of helping us understand a candidate's potential for future job success, allowing us to make even more qualified hiring decisions than we could before. So, why is cognitive ability so helpful to understand in the hiring process? What makes it such a strong predictor of job success? Remember earlier that we said cognitive ability measures an individual's ability to learn, adapt, problem solve, remember information, and process complex information. When we think about cognitive, it's helpful to think of our brains as sponges. They soak in information that can be used later to perform different kinds of tasks. We all have this sponge, and our cognitive ability is how big that sponge is or how much information we can absorb and apply to different job tasks for successful performance. The cognitive assessment then helps us understand how fast that sponge can absorb information. This helps us predict someone's likelihood to be able to learn, adapt, problem solve, and process information once on the job. These kinds of tasks, learning, adapting to new situations, and problem solving, these are related to success in almost every job in existence, which is one of the reasons that cognitive ability is applicable for nearly all candidates and why it's such a powerful predictor of success. So now at this point, you might be thinking, cognitive ability sounds a lot like IQ. Although there are similarities, the PI cognitive assessment is different from IQ. IQ is a deep measure of someone's intelligence. IQ can be used to diagnose learning disorders. It's a medical measure. It is illegal to use IQ in the workplace. Cognitive ability is a non-medical, higher-level measure that focuses on things like learning speed, ability to apply information to new situations, and problem solving. This slide shows an example of a helpful way to understand the difference between IQ and cognitive ability. Think about going to the doctor. Every time you go to the doctor, they do a quick health checkup that likely includes things like height, weight, and blood pressure. However, when you go for a physical or deeper health screening, the doctor conducts much deeper measures like cholesterol, blood tests, or even EKGs. These things can help diagnose deeper medical issues than the speed health exam ever could. In this example, the speed health exam is comparable to the cognitive assessment. It helps you get some useful information, but doesn't necessarily measure deeply enough to diagnose most medical issues. The IQ test then is much more like the deep health screening, giving you information that you need to make medical diagnoses. In sum, cognitive ability and IQ are not one and the same, making cognitive ability safe to use in the hiring workplace. In addition to being different from IQ, cognitive ability is different from other things that usually get covered in the hiring process as well. For example, the cognitive assessment gives us data on learning, adapting, and problem solving. But the behavioral assessment, PI, gives us data on what gives a candidate energy at work and what takes it away. We also have skills, and we can find this information on resumes and interviews and by collecting work samples. And then we also have education and experiences. For this, we can look at past jobs, their knowledge, and their expertise. Only when we combine this data do we start to get a fuller and clearer picture of candidates. So now that we understand what cognitive ability is and why we would use it in the hiring process, let's also talk a little bit about the impact it makes for helping you make talent decisions. According to researchers, cognitive ability has been found to be among the best predictors of general job performance when compared to at least 30 other common selection procedures, including but not limited to job experience, interests, peer rating, and employee interviews. So much so that when you're selecting between several candidates, understanding a combination of cognitive capability and behavioral fit helps you predict future job performance with 30 to 50% more accuracy. That is better than most standalone interview techniques. So, what does the cognitive assessment look and feel like for candidates? And what type of information does it actually provide you? The cognitive assessment measures three key aspects of cognitive ability: numerical ability, in other words, basic mathematical and reasoning; spatial ability, like your ability to rotate and fold objects in space; and verbal ability, so teasing apart synonyms, analogies, etc. The test contains all three types of items, and you cannot change or exclude any one of these sections. These three parts work together to help us understand general cognitive ability. You should look at the total score and not the individual scores on the subcategories. The total score is the one that's scientifically valid and not the subscores as standalones. The PI Cognitive Assessment is a 12-minute timed assessment that consists of 50 questions, of which there are three categories: verbal, numeric, and abstract. The two sample questions that you see here represent examples of abstract and verbal thinking questions. Respondents are instructed to answer as many questions as possible in the allotted 12 minutes. The score of the PI Cognitive Assessment is a scaled score based on the number of correct responses and is a measure of general cognitive ability. Once a candidate completes the cognitive assessment, you will be able to view their score. This score should be compared to a target score for the position. You can learn more about creating these target scores by watching the next video in this series. It's critical to benchmark the cognitive requirements of a role, compare that to the candidate's score, and then calculate a cognitive fit score. Cognitive should not be used as a cut score. The target score is an average and not meant to be a cutoff. If you'd like to learn more, check out the next video in this series.